Welcome to the Mike and Alison After Hours podcast with your hosts, mshelah and Alison Haas, talking business with real business owners in the Mid-Atlantic region. Today's episode is sponsored by Advantage Industries. When you need business technology, get Advantage Industries to protect and promote your business. To learn more, go to www.getadvantage.com and schedule your first meeting to see if you qualify for a free network scan.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mike and Alison After Hours. I am your host, mshelah, and with me today is the always energetic, because she's often exercising, Alison Haas. Alison, how the heck are you today?
And I fake it with yellow coffee cups if I'm not. Yes. I'm exercised and moderately energetic. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, Alison and I talk a lot about the fact that we act like people that are significantly older than we actually are. Alison's typically in bed by like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, but that's because she gets up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym for an hour and a half.
Yes.
So say that she is committed is an understatement, and one could argue perhaps she should be committed. But anyway, last week we had on Seth from Blue Shark Digital, a career attorney who decided to start his own marketing company. Talk about brilliant, talk about being brave and bold. And this episode, we are certainly delivering the goods. Mr. Gene Parker, who is a friend of mine. He also was a client of mine, both personally as well as for the massive real estate company that he used to work for back in the day. That's how we originally met about 6 years ago. So we're going to introduce Gene in just a couple of seconds. But before we do, Alison, we have a book giveaway, don't we?
We do. Thank you, Gloria Larkin. It is, why do I not have it next to me? But it's
The Basic Guide to Government Contracting.
Yes, exactly. And I read it from page to page. And so if you are a government contractor, I think it's a must read. It literally gives you, it's the Bible and the alphabet for government contracting and getting started. And if you're just a business owner, not sure what vertical you want to go to, it has a great show and tell for how to just get your legs under you as a business owner to get started in the beginning. Highly recommend it.
So we'll be giving that book away in our April episode, so after our March episodes are recorded. Now, you may be wondering, how do I win a copy of said book, Mike, and how can I get Gloria to personalize it and mail it right to me? Well, you are in luck, because I am about to tell you. So, first and foremost, you want to subscribe to our show. You can do that on the Get Advantage YouTube channel. You can do that on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Stitcher, Spotify, Audible, Amazon Alexa, wherever you like to do your podcast thing. Subscribe to the show, like it, drop a comment or share it on social media, and tag either myself or Alison. And that is how you get an entry to win a copy of the book. And it's going to be a good one. Gloria has been a friend to the show, and we are so grateful to be giving away a signed copy of her book. But as I mentioned, Gene Parker, circa 2016, I came in and did my LinkedIn training for the company that he was one of the top executives for back in the day. And then I got to work with Gene one-on-one. He was pining some very interesting ideas from a serial entrepreneur standpoint. He went off and did a couple of those. And as we found out, Gene is now going to be taking on a new exciting role. So he hasn't quite come back full circle, but it just shows the roller coaster of what it means to be an executive and professional. So Gene Parker, welcome to Mike and Alison After Hours. We're so excited to have you.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Alison. It's great to be here. I appreciate you guys inviting me, and I look forward to the conversation.
Awesome. So Gene, I'm going to take you through the who, what, where, when, why, how segment, which is your chance to tell us who Gene Parker is, your latest venture. Sounds like there's a new one to give us lots of info on. And then after a few minutes, I'm going to transition you over to Alison. Alison's going to talk about leadership, because I know you have 25 plus years of that under your belt as well, and what it takes to build a team and have a successful team. So we're going to start there, Gene. Who, what, where, when, why, how is Gene Parker?
Yeah, no, thanks. So, if I go back to the beginning of my career, maybe I start there. I graduated from college in 1990, and I majored in international relations, international studies, and it was hard to get a job with that, believe it or not. And and so, I think what that lends itself is to being either a salesperson or a manager. And so I did both of those. I had a job that actually had both components to it. And what I realized is I love the sales piece because I got paid for what I did, but I really didn't like the management piece. I wasn't a good manager, leader, supervisor. And so I ended up getting a job in outside sales, which isn't my natural personality. But I thought, you know what, I'm going to get paid for my efforts. And that was great to learn to become a professional salesperson. And after about a year of that, I really wanted to get into the commercial real estate world. And I didn't know why. My family had been in it. And I thought, it sounds like a lot of fun. And that's about all I knew about it. So I thought, well, let me get my real estate license. That's probably the best way to start. So 1992, I'm at Howard Community College at night, getting my real estate license. And sure enough, I was introduced to my employer, which turned out to be a 26-year career. I went in there and they hired me as a director of leasing. I didn't even know what that meant, but it was basically leasing shopping centers and commercial properties, but primarily shopping centers. And there was certainly a sales function to it, but it was very different and much more sophisticated than what I was used to. Rather than product sales, which is sort of a one-time transaction, these are long-term commercial leases. They're financially significant in terms of their impact on property value. And so I was really, out of my element in terms of the education that I needed to be successful in that career. So I thought, well, I didn't think I was going to get the training I needed. So I went and spent 6 years in graduate school and tried to get the business education that I needed to basically be competent in the job I already had. So, and that was great. I learned a lot, and I think it gave me probably the confidence and the education that I needed. And so, so from 1993, January 1993, I started in the commercial real estate field, spent 26 years with that company, and, had positions from director of leasing. And I say director, I didn't have any employees, but it sounded cool.
It's all about the title.
Yeah, it's all about the title, exactly. And so, I went to vice president, senior vice president, COO, and then president of the company. And, what happened is after 10 years as president, I sort of said to myself, okay, I've been here more than half my life. And it's great. I've learned a lot. I think I made a difference. But, my kids are now grown. There's got to be something else. What am I going to do with sort of the next half of my career? And so I decided to go out and work for myself and set up Parker Advisory, which is a consulting firm. It's just me, but it's the idea of going out and helping companies figure out where are they today, where are they trying to go tomorrow, and let's put a map, a roadmap together to get you there. So during that time, I became partners with now a friend and a business partner in the commercial real estate world. He owned a brokerage company. I Googled him, never met him, and we sat down, formed a partnership, and so I'm principal and broker of record for his company, and I work with a great team in Annapolis, in the commercial real estate brokerage world. I then, and I was really, my goal was really a lot more working with consulting clients than in commercial real estate. So although they were related, one was going to feed the other. So I go to a meeting at the recommendation of a friend, and I'm sitting down telling this business owner what I do. And he says, great, we should work together. And I thought, great, big client. And I said, well, how many days a week? He said, full time. And I thought, I've done this before. I'm really not looking for a job. I had one of those, and it was a good one, and I loved it. Anyway, long story short, we decided to work together, and I worked there for about a year and a half as a COO of that company. And, it was really the same thing as consulting, saying, you guys own the company. Where do you want to go? What does a good outcome look like in the future? Paint a picture for me, 3, 5, 7, 10 years out. Be specific. And my job is to put the organization together to get you there. Systems, policies, procedures, process. And so I did that for a year and a half, and then went back to my consulting business. And that fast forward to now, which is I've had another group come to me after just a casual introduction and say, hey, why don't you come work for me? So that's sort of the unintended consequences of being a consultant, which is your clients sometimes come to you and say, hey, why don't you get rid of all your little clients and come, I'll be your big client. So that's I don't know if it's a brief history, but that's what I've done in the last 30 years.
Well, you touched on a couple of things, Gene, that Alison and I hear practically every episode. One of them, which I don't know that we've implicitly talked about before, but it's often inferred, is that sales really is a career track to leadership. It seems that good salespeople end up becoming leaders in an organization. either intentionally or by default. And we talk about that all the time. And the thing that you said that I find very interesting is there's a lot of businesses out there that are making it, surviving despite themselves. They don't have a clear roadmap. They don't have a vision. Well, where do I want to be 3 years, 5 years, 7 years from now? And when you think about what it takes to be successful in sales, you comment, I wanted to be rewarded for my own merits. And that is very much sales. If you are not doing your job, don't worry about them firing you because you're going to go broke. And so it's a fascinating dynamic to me. And as you've pointed out, you're now parlaying that into your third executive opportunity in call it the last 5 years. You left an organization. You were there for a quarter of a century. You were very successful. You were one of the top 3 people in the company. And then you go off to do your own and you bring value there. And I guess for our listening audience, there's hope, right? That there are people like you out there that they can either A, hire, or B, at least contract and consult with, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I would say most of what I've learned is actually from people coming to me or being referred to me. And I may not have all the answers, but I just ask a lot of questions. And what happens is, through asking a lot of questions, the answer becomes apparent, right? They'll tell you the answer. What they haven't done is they haven't sat down and thought through it and planned. But if I say, well, what is a good outcome look like in the future? Well, I don't know. Because they're thinking a year out, 3 months out, 6 months out with the immediate problems on their to-do list. And part of what I'm saying is, for you to want to wake up and jump out of bed at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. every day and be excited and have energy and transfer that enthusiasm, which is what sales is, transfers of enthusiasm. If you're going to transfer that to your team and have them be as motivated and fired up as you are, you got to have a vision. There's got to be a purpose and a why behind this rather than tomorrow's checklist. So, but I think in most people, when you take them through that exercise, that they find, wow, it really is true. Let me think bigger. You also mentioned sales, and I think that's really important. My natural personality is not a salesperson, particularly years ago when I started out in that business. I think there's lots of ways to be successful in sales, but it's funny. I do a lot of university teaching, and I always draw.
I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, it ties into the sales, particularly in terms of the importance of the role in business, because what I usually do is I'll draw on the whiteboard a conference table. And at the head, I put the CEO or the president or the owner. And I put all the functions around the table. It could be property management, leasing, legal, accounting, architecture, engineering, et cetera. And of course, leasing is one, commercial leasing, which in our business, the commercial real estate business, is sales. And I always say to the students, what do you think the most important is? Or they'll say to me, hey, Gene, what's the most important? What they really mean is, which one should I try to get because it pays the most money? And I always tell them that there's 2 things that are most important in my mind around the table. Number one is sales and marketing. And they go together in the sense that, marketing's first. We need to come up with a unique product or service and differentiate it and then create that story and get it in front of the right people. Once they come to your door, that's the sales process, which is now we have to overcome, sell them on features and benefits, overcome objections, and close the sale. So in our business, it's leasing. And I think that's one of the most important roles. And I think it's hard to be an executive and a leader in a company if ultimately you don't understand your product inside and out, how it's unique and differentiated from everybody else's, and then how you get that story in front of the right customer and how you close the sale. I think you've got to know that to be able to move up in an organization. That is what we do, is we have a product or service, we need to market it and ultimately sell it. The other skill I think is most important around the table is math. And when I say that, it's really finance and accounting.
Boy, am I in trouble.
You've got, I think ultimately to be, the senior executive in a company, you've got to know the numbers. If I sit down with business owners, it's not that they don't care about products and services and clients and customers. They assume there's teams taking care of that. What they really want to know is, I've given you money, or our investors have given you money. How are we doing as good stewards of that? And do we fundamentally understand return on investment, value creation, return of capital, et cetera? So while there's lots of roles around the table in terms of positions and career paths, I think fundamentally understanding the sales and marketing function and the math behind the business, because we're all in the investment world and we need to make our shareholders money. There's lots of other things we need to do too. But if we lose sight of that, we're going to have trouble in the long run. So that's my quick sales sales
Yeah,
view.
Gene, I love what you said there. Many, many years ago, when cold calling on the telephone was still a viable thing that people did on a regular basis, I remember I got somebody into a conversation with me. And for those of you out there that have ever cold called, you know that's truly rare. People, A, either hang up on you, or B, they don't answer the phone at all. You don't get a lot of middle ground. But when you get actually someone to talk to you and they're not hanging up, you have a unique opportunity to get some insight and learn. And I remember one day I had this person on the phone and they were just saying no to me. They wouldn't meet with me. They wouldn't give me, but they weren't hanging up. And I said, I need to ask you something. And I don't mean to be flippant when I do this, but I sincerely want to know your answer. I just told you that the solution that I bring to the table for your business can save you 20 to 30% on a major bill in your business. And I can't understand why you wouldn't want to meet with me to discuss that. And the woman said, we don't care about the beans going out. We care about the beans coming in. And that was a watershed moment for me as a sales professional, because yeah, sure. Can we save 20% on our next order of lead pipe or whatever it is that people are buying or selling or trading? Sure. That matters, as you just said, with the numbers, but really it's about return on investment. If I put this time into this activity or this thing, do I get my money back? How soon do I get my money back? And when does it begin to pay a dividend? And I think a lot of sales professionals miss that. So Gene, this has been great. Before I hang you off to Alison, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
It's a good question. I would say, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can find me on there. I've done a very good job with LinkedIn since you and I first met. So, those are really the best places, and my contact information. You can.
So social engagement on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Great. We'll make sure those links are in the show notes. Alison, can't wait to hear what you talk to Gene about leadership with. Take it away.
Thank you, sir. Gene, thank you. I was thinking while you were sharing your different job offers, I'm like, you're the professional prom king, right? Like everybody wants you. It's what an amazing position to put yourself in, right? The opportunity to say no. And what I wanted to go back to was the fact that you continued to educate yourself to advance your career, and that you called sales a profession, which I know for me, it was low hanging fruit in the beginning, right? Like, what can I do where no one's really telling me what to do, and I'm kind of in charge because everyone knows that I like that, but where I can move forward. And sales was a low hanging fruit, low barrier to entry. But today, I mean, I really do consider myself a professional, right? And so I would love to hear your perspective on that and kind of how that's allowed you to evolve up in the ranks of being an executive.
Yeah, I think that, it's funny because I'm not the poster child salesperson, particularly, like I said, if you knew me over the years. But I heard a great expression once about, sales really being a transfer of enthusiasm. And I think that's true. And, when I think about my role, let's say in, the new organization I'm going to work with, or any of the groups I've worked with before, really, there's only so many things I can do. If I'm running an organization, when I think about the roles around the table, I don't know how to do almost any of those jobs. It's certainly not better than any of the people around the table. And so I have no specialized skill set as it relates to, one of legal, accounting, finance. And so really the question is, well, then what's my value? And the value is really to sell the organization on a vision. And when I say sell, it's not convince them. It's basically say, here's what a good outcome looks like. Here's all the tangible benefits for a variety of people, from the community, for the customers, for you all, for your families, for the owners, and really get them to buy in, right? By showing them how it's going to be beneficial for them. So I think this idea of sales, it's not so much in my mind, at least in my role now, more as an executive. It's not about, I've got a product and I need to get you to understand features and benefits. And it's not about price, close. There's somebody doing that, but really in my role as an executive, it is back to how do we create a vision for a company that people say, you know what, I love it. I'm all in. It's not just about the money. And part of that is, what's in it for the team, right? The sales aspect of it is, if you work with me, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to grow. As a result, you're going to make money and you're going to get promotions and you're going to have a lot of fun. And whether you stay or not, you're going to be highly employable because of your time with me. That's the sales pitch. And my job is to simply deliver on that. So basically what it is sitting down with everybody on your team and saying, where do you want to be in the future? 1, 3, 5, 10 years. If you want my job, great. I'll teach you how to do it because I'm not going to live forever and I'm not going to do this forever. I got some great advice many years ago, and it was replace yourself along the way if you ever want to get ahead. And it's really true. And so, what I've always said to my employers is I'm happy if you want to talk to my team and base my performance evaluation on their feedback about me. And again, that's really about sitting down and saying, hey, if you're here working hard for our company every day, I want to get you where you want to go. Because if I don't do that, you're going to leave and find it somewhere else. All I have to do is sit down and ask you, what do you want to accomplish? What's a good job look like for you and your family? And then give them the education, support, guidance, coaching, mentoring that they need to get where they want to go. They'll stay with you forever if you do that.
I love what you said about replacing yourself, right? And what I'm hearing from you and seeping out is humility, right? And the fact that you keep mentioning a table, to me, I envision circular and everybody's equal, right? Now, we all have different skill sets and different value adds, but at the end of the day, it's a collaborative unit that works together to move forward. And so if you could share about that, because I think a lot of leaders, the successful leaders share that philosophy, but there's a lot of, and I can say this as a former business owner, like I do it the best, I do it all, right? And then I just got burnt out. So what can you tell us about the sharing and the delegating and that as a leader?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a tough balance, right? Because I think to be very successful, you need a level of ego and confidence. But the question is, how do you balance that such that you're not sort of over the top, right? And so, what you don't want to do is as a leader, take the position that, one, I'm the smartest guy in the room, and two, my lack of confidence requires me to prove it every day. I'm just a facilitator. I don't know everything. People around the table do it. And so I think a lot of it really does come down to that, this whole idea of, to be a good leader, self-awareness, number one. Number two is humility, what you just said. It's not about being the smartest person in the room. And if you try to prove that with your team every day, they're going to bail on you, right? You're smart or not, people are going to figure that out quickly. You're transparent and a good person or not, people are going to figure that out quickly too. You got to drop the act quickly. People know you're in charge because you're the president or you're the owner. We don't need to prove it every day. And I think you got to be very careful to allow people to speak up. And those strong, abrasive personalities where they act like they're doing you a favor by letting you work here, that stifles creativity, it stifles leadership and growth. And I think the other thing I'd say is that, as a leader, people are always watching, and they're not just watching you, they're watching and taking cues on how to become a leader themselves. And my job, in my mind, is to demonstrate good behavior such that people don't come to me and say, "Hey, Gene, how do you be a good leader?" My view is just watch me. There's not how I act, and then there's a separate story about how to be good at being.
I love what you're saying. Like, be who you are wherever you go, right? That's a personal mantra of mine. Like, don't talk the talk and then go out there and someone sees you raging at the cashier when you're like, I live this very spiritually evolved life and I'm so kind, right? And you're saying exactly right. Let people watch you and observe you and act your way into the way of living and being that you want to be. And as a leader, I think, what I'm hearing you describe is again, that humility. I'm partnered. I'm one of. I'm an extension of you. I add value to you, and you don't need to beat people over the head to say, "Hey, did you see the label on my desk? I'm the president, right?" And you just are a barbaric asshole, right? Otherwise, so I really do identify that and appreciate that. And the other thing I love that you were talking about is this idea of a story, right? You're selling a story, not just to the customer, but to your teams, right? Because I know for me, I can't sell my product and service unless I believe in it. Back in the day, I'll sell whatever, right? Am I going to make money? Fine, I'll figure it out. But today, it just doesn't jive with who I am. And so unless I really do believe in the impact I have on people and their families, and have stories and experiences to yield to others, I can't do it. So I would love for you to expand on that story idea, because it's the vision and it's internal, but it's also, how we affect our customers.
Yeah, I think that people generally don't remember facts and figures, especially if it's just rote memory, but they'll remember stories, and I had a group of property managers, maybe 30, 40 people in the room one day years ago. And I said to them, hey, I just want to make a quick list of all the most stressful times in people's lives. And everybody started throwing out ideas, and I started whiteboarding them. And it's, marriage and divorce and having kids and, moving jobs and doing all these different things. And I said, well, that's great. I said, think about the business we're in, right? We're in the business when people are moving into one of our apartment communities. They're going through one of the most stressful times in their lives, right? A move, and it could be a change of schools for kids. It could be, a new grocery store. It's a new way to work or whatever. And I said, but think about this. On top of that, there's probably one of these other life events that's sparking that. It could be divorce, whether it's good or bad. There's a lot of stress going on in these people's lives because not only is it the move into a new apartment community, but it's also the stressor that's creating that. And so what do we do when people walk in and they walk into our apartment community, they see someone sitting behind a desk, looking at their phone, not paying attention. I'm like, we got to recognize the person walking through that door has a lot going on in their life. And it's a very stressful time. And the reason they're going to lease from me is not because of the features and benefits of our product. Frankly, they're not that different among the communities. The reason they're going to leave is because the impact I'm going to have on them because of the empathy and understanding I have about what they're going through. That's the way to be a successful salesperson is put yourself in their shoes, have empathy, understand their situation, and figure out how to make it better. So talk to them like a human being. Ask about their kids. Ask about what they really want and don't want. Really listen to them. Forget about your bonus and your commission and the unit you really need to move because nobody likes it because of floor squeak, whatever. And so people walk out thinking, wow, I've never thought about it that way. I'm like, yeah, because you're thinking about, I got 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms and these are the features and benefits, like whatever. That's the minimum standard is knowing that stuff. The real question is, can you engage with and have empathy with the person that's in front of you? Chick-fil-A does a very good job of that. They have a great video, and I don't know the name of it. It's a training video. It's 2 or 3 minutes. There's no words in it, but it's remarkable in terms of the impact that it has. And while I'm not a crier, I'll tell you, you watch this video after 2 or 3 minutes, and a tear comes to your eye in terms of the story behind the people that are coming to the cash register. Remarkable.
And I am a crier. And I've had some crazy things happen in my life over the last few months, from the bottom that you can imagine all the way to the top. So I relate to that as someone conversing with others and, meet people where they are, right? And I think that's a really, not that I want to end the show with you on it, but I think that's a great bookend to this whole conversation, right? Like at the end of the day, people are buying you and they're buying the experience that they're having with you. And that's what they're leaving the conversation with. Right? You're exactly right. Everyone's going to tell you their product's better, but at the end of the day, most are very, very similar. But what is the experience and the service that they're having in this engagement? And then that's also going to determine how long are they going to stay and be a customer, right? So you can sell them on features and benefits and the price in the beginning, but that's not why they're going to stay ultimately.
Yeah, it's so much of it's the personal connection, and people just simply lose sight of that. And a lot of it's just that they've got other things on their mind, and nobody's reframed it for them. And I think reframing it is everything. If we just sat down and said these are human beings that have a lot going on in their life, how can we make a difference today? And that's true for your employees, it's true for your investors, it's true for your board people. What I want people after the interaction with me is to say, wow, I learned something today. I'd love to spend more time with this person, whether as an employee or as a consultant or a friend, because there's a lot of takeaways in terms of the feeling I got from that interaction. And if you can get your people to do that for the people that they interact with, all of a sudden you've got this multiplication effect where it's the ripples of I do one good thing and train other people. And it's back to the same thing we talked about before, which is how do you replace yourself along the way? Yeah, if I leave an organization, I don't want them to replace me. I want them to say, you know what, it actually runs without Gene because he did his job. The right people in the right seats, you train them the right way, they understand what a good outcome looks like, and as a result, place runs without him. If I left and it fell apart, that's right. A problem.
Well, then the business isn't worth anything, and then you have no balance with work and life, right? Those two things. So, Gene, thank you so much. I just wrote down people have a lot going on as my personal reminder for my day as I venture out into the world of meetings with Alison. So, thank you for that reminder. We really loved having you today, Mike.
Yeah, Gene, I will echo that. Your parting thought around a successful company is designed by the fact that any one person at the top can step away and things will continue to perform well. For our viewing and listening audience, if that one didn't shake you down to your bones, and you just haven't been paying attention. So Gene Parker, thank you so much for being on Mike and Alison After Hours today. We are so happy to have you with us.
Great to see you both. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Gene.
Bye.
Howard, you're not letting me do that.
Yeah, and as you and I so often see, every time we have a guest on, we could literally spend an entire hour talking to them.
Yeah.
About who they are and what they do. And just to frame it, Gene didn't talk about the company he was with. If you go look at his LinkedIn profile, it's pretty easy to figure out. He was in second in command of a company that has like 500 employees.
Wow.
So by no means a small company. And he genuinely helped build it.
Yeah.
In many, many ways. And when I met him a couple months later, he invited me out to lunch and said, I want to work one-on-one with you on those things you do with LinkedIn. And I remember thinking, wow. But that gets back to Gene's core, which is, I don't know everything. This is something that I want to figure out, so I'm going to ask somebody that knows more about this than I do. And that, as you pointed out, that came from every aspect of the conversation today.
Well, and he, made a good point, again, that the table, but if I were to sit at that table with him, I would say to myself, I want to be a leader like Gene, right? A humble, equal opportunist. We learn from each other. Like when you have a barbaric, authoritative boss, you don't leave the office saying, I wish I had their job. You just think, get me the F out of here, away from them, right? And so, again, live by showing through example and acting your way. Perfect life message, not just professional message, I really was just so impressed by him, and he just exuded so much poise and class, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good word for Gene, that while he presents as an executive, meaning when I first met him, he had on the power suit, and he had his giant oak wooden table in his office. It was basically a small conference room. But when he talks to you, you get the sense that you're talking to a peer, that you're talking to a confidant. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. And again, it's not an all the time, none of the time thing. There are aspects of our lives where we do just fine with that.
Right.
And aspects where we don't. And to tie his consulting business into what you and I do every day for a moment. When you are running a business and you're trying to get better, it's difficult to see every facet of a business. And Alison, I know you can speak to this, but there are some companies that are just walking HR violations. Up until this point, they have been fortunate that those things have not caused them trouble.
Yep.
But that gives this false sense of, well, I don't need to worry about these things.
Right.
Because I've been in business for 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, and I've never had this problem before.
Yeah.
And I have the same thing on the IT side of the business. Well, I've never, and what people fail to recognize is because it hasn't happened, simply dictates the greater likelihood that it's going to happen sooner rather than later. Like if you had a significant HR incident last year or a significant cyber incident last year, chances are you're probably good for a while.
Right.
Unless it's indicative of your policies and procedures. And did the thing that caused that incident last year, is that common and repeatable? Because if it's common and repeatable, then you're waiting for it to happen again. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. I know when they talk to me about cyber, I think they struggle with that when they talk to you about HR, at least I'm guessing.
Yeah, well, and it's more, it goes back to just insurance in general. And oh my God, what was his name? We had him as a guest. Was it Joseph?
Joe Brunsman?
John, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I was seeing it in my head, it just wasn't coming out of my mouth.
Yeah.
But just, it's like we have insurance for when it happens, not if, right? And in Gene talking about a successful business is one that leadership can leave and it's still running. And it goes to like, for those wanting to not work till they are in the grave, for your business to be worth anything, it has to run without you. They are not buying you. They are buying your business. And so from an HR and cyber perspective, the more diligence you do to have both of those facets in place where your HR due diligence is high, your cyber is intact, someone can come in and know that business from a people's perspective is up to snuff. And as cyber protective is protected, right, and working correctly, they can step into your role and just keep doing whatever you were doing or grow the business or whatever, instead of having to put out all the fires and fix all the things, which is all non-revenue generating and takes you away from your bottom line and from growing your business.
Yeah, I saw an article this morning that hackers are now focusing on smaller businesses. Because you used the term earlier, which is real common in sales, which is low-hanging fruit. If I want to eat, I'm not going to climb the tree to get the fruit at the top. I'm going to let the giraffes deal with that and their extra long necks. But if there's fruit down at the bottom that I can grab, why wouldn't I?
Right.
And hackers are employing that strategy. So, people go, oh, well, I'm not, a major pipeline, or I'm not Target, or I'm not PF Chang's, or I'm not fill in the blank big name company that had a breach in the last 5 years. Okay, fine. You hear about that in the news,
right,
because those are really big names and they have shareholders, and the shareholders got upset that things happen. So that's why it gets in the news. But for every Target breach that happens in the United States, there are 1,000 small businesses that had a cyber attack, ransomware, phishing scam, wire transfer, that 99 out of 100 times was easily preventable. And that's the thing I want to get at, because what you and I do on a daily basis, whether it's HR or IT, we prevent easily bad things from happening. Now, that doesn't mean that bad things can't still happen,
right,
but it's the frequency chart. If a bad thing happens once a year, it's easier to overcome that. If bad things are happening daily, your business won't survive. So why not make that investment? Gene talked about it, the ROI. Spending $5 with me or with you has at least a $10 or a $15 return, and it scales that way. And people they can't always see that, because they're like, well, all Allison's going to do is write a policy manual for me. Okay, well, that's a thing. And no, Allison's not doing it, but the team behind her is. So I think that's a fascinating component. And again, we have nothing but sympathy for business owners and business leaders. Running a business is not simple, and I don't want to pretend that it is. But you talked to a gentleman that I introduced you to last week. He owns 2 medical companies, and your feedback to me was he was a wonderful human being.
Yep.
And that comes from having good, positive conversations, not necessarily sales, right?
Oh, well, and I think for what Gene said, meeting people where they are and remembering they are a human when they walk in the door, every conversation you have is that. And so while we do sell things, services, products, at the end of the day, I'm really after having a good conversation of quality where I am more of an advisor than anything else. And that brings in the consultant piece. Like, Worst case, we give you another perspective on what's going on in your daily business. But I like what Gene started with was that he asks questions, right? He doesn't have all the answers, but he asks questions. And that's how I sell. I ask questions. I don't spew all over you what I do. I ask questions and you give me answers which paint the story of what's going on and what you want it to look like and what's working and what's not. And then I can share, okay, here's where we could meet you. And that's not what sales was in the beginning for me, which is why I think it's a profession and it's something to be educated on and continue to evolve. It's not a pitch and here's what I can do for you. It's tell me what's going on and I'll meet you there if it makes sense.
Yeah, that might be perhaps the worst aspect of sales is that literally anybody can get a sales job.
Right.
But what happens, as you and I are both aware of, is the turnover in sales is around 90%, meaning there are plenty of people that come in and out of our respective companies. And not so much now that I'm with a smaller company, but certainly when I worked for nationwide telecom and IT companies, and you work for a nationwide HR company, you see turnover because people will get a job and they never fit out. They never figure out how exactly to fit in.
Right.
And I had this one manager several years back who I just thought was a despicable human being. And he was everything that people dislike about sales.
Mm.
All he cared about was closing the deal. And he didn't take the time to talk to me or learn anything about me. And we were in a car together riding to an appointment one day. And I asked him, I said, you know what? I don't know anything about you or your family. Tell me. And he didn't want to talk to me about that. Like, he was very off-putting. I'm like, well, I'm guessing you're not doing this just for the hell of it. Like, you're doing this to provide for a family. And Lord knows, if I was independently wealthy, sorry, folks, Mike and Alison After Hours wouldn't exist. I wouldn't be doing this right now. This is part of the process. And, so that's a big thing. And I know the human side of this business is really critical to you as well, particularly when you consider everything that goes on in human resources for a business.
Yeah, no, it's and it's delicate today because of what everyone has experienced over the last few years. So it is more pressing than ever. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm guessing the Great Resignation comes up a lot when you talk to prospective as well as current clients, because you maintain relationships with your clients. That's part of how you're compensated, making sure that they are with the company for a long period of time and that they are satisfied and that they will refer other businesses to you.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, times have changed 1,000% with the Great Resignation, the ability to work wherever you want, which then brings in compliance issues and how do you manage a remote workforce? It's very different than a one that you can keep your hands on literally and see in the office. Sales has, for me, changed completely to virtual, whereas it used to be completely in person, right? So, I think there's nothing the same about the world we knew it from a sales, HR, and cyber perspective a couple years ago.
And I'm sure some people watching and listening to this right now go, why are we still talking about this? We're still talking about it because Alison and I every week talk to business owners that haven't figured this out yet. 2 years in. We talk to people that don't understand the HR impact of a remote workforce. They don't understand the IT impact of a remote workforce. They don't understand the financial impact, good and bad. By the way, all three have goods and bads to them. This isn't just about scaring you into doing something. There are real benefits to taking advantage of what this environment has given us professionally and leveraging that for success. And the businesses that are thriving today are the ones that are doing that. They're looking at this saying, this is an opportunity for us to do better, from an HR perspective, this is an opportunity for us to expand the quality of our employees because we can now recruit from anywhere. Now, that also complicates the HR because depending on where that person lives can dictate the laws that you as a business must accommodate. And same thing for IT. We can help you expand your customer reach. Now, if you have customers that are in New York, well, that changes the rules a little bit. If you have customers in Europe, that changes the rules a little bit. And these aren't deal breakers, but you got to be aware of them. So the more you talk to people that have expertise in the things that you don't do, the higher your likelihood of success. So I think that's my parting thought for the day.
I like it.
Thank you, Alison.
Well, and I just think, like Gene, being a consultant now and lending his experience, I think the take home from today is don't be afraid to continue to educate yourself, right? If you think you know it all, you probably don't. So, yeah, I loved his reminder of just constantly evolving, and we can all learn from one another. It's a great episode.
This was a great episode. So everyone, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. For Alison Haas, I am mshelah, Mike and Alison After Hours. And remember, folks, people helping people. It's powerful stuff.
Thank you for joining Mike and Alison After Hours. Tune in next time for another great business owner sharing valuable industry ideas. Want to be a guest on our show? Contact us at answers@getadvantage.com.